Hi, today we'll be discussing regarding the home science lab book. You should be knowing that for the NI's 10th home science, the overall exam is for 100 marks, and out of that, 85 marks is for your theory. So, literally, you're appearing for a theory board exam, and that will be for 85 marks. And the rest of the 15 marks is basically lab. So, after your theory exam, the centers will be giving you dates, and you'll also have to appear for the home science practical exam, which is out of 15. Now, the distribution is of 15 is like usually 3 to 4 marks for the lab book, and the rest of the marks will be for a Viva session. So it can be a Viva session, or they'll just ask you to write answers for certain question. It all depends upon the center where you're appearing for the exam. So in this video, today we're going to discuss what are all the different experiments that we'll have to consider for our home science lab book. Okay, so you need to purchase 100 or 200 pages home science lab book. Okay, and the lab book should be with one side blank and the other side ruled, something like this. Okay, so make sure when you purchase a book from the market or any shop, make sure one side ruled lines are there, one side it's ruled and the other one is blank. Now, once you start writing, it will look something like this. Like a rule side would be for writing your content, and the blank pages will be used either for tabular arrangement, or it can be pictures. Okay, and in certain cases, even drawing. So it all depends upon the requirement. Okay, now for this home science lab book for NIS 10th, you will be having 17 experiments. You are supposed to write 17 experiments in your lab book. Okay, so in this video, we'll be discussing the first experiment, that's the first practical, and what things to write for the first practical, what all points you should keep in mind while writing the first practical. That's what we're going to discuss here. Okay, so as I said, you need to purchase a lab book. Okay, make sure that the first page is an index page. Suppose if you don't have an index by default, okay, in the purchase book, what you can do is you can actually make an index. Okay, so in that index, you can write the serial number or the experiment number. You can write the date when you actually discussed this experiment with your teacher, or when you wrote the experiment in your book, or the practical session in your book. You can just assign that date. Okay, you can mention the topic, the title of your practical experiment or practical, and you can mention the page numbering, and this remark session will be filled up by your teachers. Okay, or their signatures will be put up. So in short, the requirement is your first page should be an index page. By default, if it is there, utilize that thing. If it is not there, make sure you make one index using a scale and a pencil. Just draw the table, okay, and make sure you have enough space put up for 17 experiments. Let's start with the first one. Okay, so this is practical number 1. Now in practical number 1, first what you will do is, okay, after the index, the first page you can use, make sure you put the heading as practical number 1, and below that first write the aim of your experiment. So the first one is what? Observe and record the results of cooking any 2 cereals and 2 vegetables cooked by different methods. Okay, so this is what you're going to do. This is the experiment that you're going to try. So the first point in your practical book should be aim. Once you write down this aim, the second thing is objectives. So the objective basically means whatever you have recorded, like whatever experiment you do. what you will be able to understand after you complete this experiment, what you will be able to understand. So in objectives, what we'll be learning is what are the effects of cooking food. Then you will learn the different methods of cooking, and also you will identify that certain methods of cooking can actually reduce the nutrient level in the food, and certain level of cooking or certain methods of cooking will help you to preserve the nutrients in the food. So these are the objectives for this particular experiment. Then, for doing this experiment, what are the materials required? Okay, so what all you'll be using? You'll use two cereals, you'll use vegetables, you need to cut the vegetables, so you need knife, bowl, cooking utensils, pressure cooker, saucepan, pot, cooking oil, spices, serving bowl, serving spoon, gas stove, LPG cylinder, and ingredients for selected recipes. Okay, so in short, for performing this experiment, what are the requirements? So because it is two cereals and two vegetables, okay, all the required elements for cooking, for cutting, okay, and even the flavor, the elements for flavor, everything will be included, so that you have to write it in the materials. Then comes the procedure. So how you're going to do this? So first is you will choose for cereals, what are all the two cereals that you're going to prepare. Vegetables, what are the two vegetables that you're going to prepare. Now, once you have selected two cereals and two vegetables, identify recipes for these food items involving different method of cooking, like cooking by moist heat, dry heat, and frying. So you identified the cereals and the vegetables that you want. Now you need to identify the method of cooking, like which method you're going to use for cooking. Now it can be shallow fry, it can be deep fry, it can be pressure cooking, it can be boiling. So you need to identify which method. Then get samples of food cooked according to those methods and observe keenly the changes in their color, texture, and flavor. So once you have selected the cereals, vegetables, once you have identified the method of cooking, and once you finish the cooking process, you need to distinguish, okay, whatever is the methods that you used, what was the color of the food or the cereals or the vegetables before cooking and after cooking. What was the texture before cooking, after cooking? What was the flavor before cooking and after cooking? So that's what you are supposed to write. So 3 points to write in procedure. Then comes the precautions. Now in precautions, what you have to understand is before cooking or while you're cooking, what certain things you need to keep in mind. First is wash the cereals and vegetables thoroughly. Anything you want to cook, make sure you wash it properly. Do not wash the vegetables after cutting. That is a very important thing. You shouldn't be washing the vegetables after cutting, because it actually destroys a lot of vitamins and a lot of minerals from that. Again, the size of the vegetables that you're cutting, it should not be very small. Okay, it is very important that you actually cut it in a medium size, because that will also affect the nutrient level of your food. Do not overcook. Even overcooking will reduce the nutrients level in the food. Use just enough water, oil, heat for cooking. Nothing should be excess. If you have more of water, your food can be more meshy. If you have more of oil, that will lead to health related problems. So make sure whatever is the minimum quantity, use that in the terms of water as well as oil. Now we set the procedure. We finished the cooking. Imagine we finished the cooking. Now it's the time for us to observe it. Okay, now that observation is actually shown in the form of table here. So two cereals I have picked and two vegetables I have picked. So if you notice, this is how your table should look like. Okay, so your table, in the first food item, what I have picked up for cereal is rice. What is the method that I'm choosing for rice? I'm using boiling as well as pressure cook. So I'm using two methods. Now I'm going to observe it before and after. That is color, texture, and flavor. So while before cooking rice that was using the boiling method, it showed white color. After cooking, you will notice that it turns to white color. The texture before cooking, definitely rice, it's going to be solid, so it's hard. And after cooking, it was soft. So before cooking, if you see the flavor for rice, it's going to be raw. And after cooking, definitely it's going to be soft, it's going to be fluffy. Now the same rice, rather than boiling, I'm using pressure cook. Okay, going to pressure cook it. So when I pressure cook it, if you see, there is similarity. You don't see much of difference. So it's going to be off-white before cooking. Once you have cooked, it's going to be white in color. The texture was hard before cooking. After cooking, it's going to be soft. The flavor, again, it was raw before cooking. After cooking, it's going to be soft. So basically, the boiling method or the pressure cook method, you will notice that uh, the the observation is almost similar. But what you have to understand is, when you're boiling, you're draining off the excess of water. Pressure cook, most of the time you'll notice that only the required amount of water would be set, and accordingly it would absorb the entire water. It will just throw out the excess water. Okay, so in terms of nutritional level, definitely pressure cooked will have the nutrition level intact, because you're not throwing off the water there. Now dal, which is the second cereal, you will notice the method of cooking is boiling, and again the second method is pressure cooked. So before boiling, the color was yellow. After boiling, it was golden yellow. Again, the texture was hard. After boiling, yes, the texture became soft. Before boiling, definitely it was raw. After you have cooked it, it was tasty, it was soft. Again, pressure cooked, if you check, I'm not talking about the same dal, I'm actually talking about the green dal. You have lentils in different forms, right? Yellow is there, I have red, not red, orange. Again, green is there. So before cooking, it was green. After cooking, it is dark green. That's a little more darker green. Texture is hard before cooking, soft after cooking, and flavor is raw before cooking, and definitely it's tasty after the cooking. So this is the table that you have to make for the observation of the cereal. So cereal we have picked up two. Then what do we have? The second thing is vegetable. Okay, so same way we have picked up two vegetable, which is potato and brinjal. Okay, and potato, two methods. One is boiling and the second one is deep frying. So when it was boiling, before cooking, yes, it was brown in color, because you're saying that the whole potato you're actually putting for boiling. Once it got boiled, you will notice that once it is cooked, you will notice that it was off white. The texture, yes, before boiling it was hard. After boiling or after cooking, it was soft. Again, flavor, it was raw potato before cooking, and after cooking, it was salty. It's, yes, it doesn't mean that it's too salty. It's just that that salt flavor comes because you're putting salt and you're boiling it. Then deep frying. For deep frying, you will be cutting it in the form of strips, right? So before cooking, it looked like a white color. Once it was deep fried, it turned to light yellow. The texture was hard. Before, after that, after the cooking process, it was soft. And before cooking, yes, the flavor was raw. And after cooking, you would notice that it is crispy. Potato chips is crispy. Okay, so when it comes to brinjal, again, we are using two methods. One is roasting and the second one is shallow frying. Okay, for roasting, yes, the color of the brinjal before cooking is purple. Okay, after cooking, especially roasting, it turned to brown color. It See, we cannot say brinjal to be hard here. It's going to be tender. It's a little tender compared to potatoes and all. So it's tender before cooking, and after cooking, it's softer. Flavor is raw because roasting is with spices. Yes, it's having spicy flavor. Again, the next method is actually shallow frying. Okay, for shallow frying, again, the color is purple. Again, the color that is before cooking, it's purple. After cooking, it is golden. Before cooking, the texture is tender. After cooking, it's soft. And flavor is raw before cooking and sweet after the cooking. Now, conclusion. So, we picked up two cereals, picked up two vegetables, we finished the cooking procedure, we made some observations also. Okay, so what is the conclusion that we come up with? Okay, so what you have to understand is cooking improves the look, the flavor, and the eating quality of food and makes it palatable. So the point is like, when you're trying to use raw food, definitely it doesn't look tasty. It does, I mean, it does not have that flavor. It does not, it's not in the form of that it can be consumed. So when you have vegetables or cereals, and if it is raw, if you haven't cooked it, it doesn't feel or it does not have that flavor or it does not have that quality uh, to eat. It's raw. Okay, it's hard. It's difficult to consume. But once you cook it, definitely it improves the look of the food. It changes the flavor of the food, and yes, it's the quality for eating also changes, so it's palatable, that is you can eat it. Now some related questions. Now these questions you need to focus because maybe in Viva these questions are being asked. So for this practical, what you have to understand is what are the different methods of cooking. Okay, so you can boil, you can stew, you can steam, pressure cooking is there, baking is there, roasting is there, grilling is there, deep frying, shallow frying. These are all the very, very different methods. There are many methods. Okay, so you can just list down some of the methods that you remember. But for your lab book, yes, you have to write all these methods. Then suggest some methods to reduce nutrient loss during preparation and cooking. See, basically, what you have to understand is like, there are little tips and tricks that you have to use when you're cooking so that the nutrient level is intact. So, whenever you're cooking, it is not possible for all type of vegetables, but then yes, keep the skins on whenever possible for whichever food item it is. For all, it is not possible. Okay, avoid continuous reheating of food. So the best thing is to actually eat food when it is fresh, cooked freshly. Okay, avoid just keeping it in refrigerator, reheating it, having it. No, it definitely loses the nutrient level in it. Then use minimum amount of cooking liquid. So when you are using water for cooking, make sure that the amount of water that you're using is less. Okay, suppose if you're using the boiling method of cooking something, you can actually reuse that water rather than throwing it away. You can reuse that water. Maybe you can use it for soups, you can use it for stocks. Okay, and the cooking methods that you're applying, steaming, pressure cooking, simmering, stewing. These are some methods that you can prefer, which actually helps in uh, preservation, or it helps in the nutrient level to be intact with the food. Because if you talk about the other methods, such as boiling and all, as you throw out the water, the nutrient level or the mineral level in that particular food item would be lost. Then why should the vegetables not be cut into tiny pieces? Okay, because these tiny pieces will have greater loss of nutrients. Okay, and if you have larger chunks of vegetable pieces, definitely it will reduce the surface area also. So the best thing is make sure that the vegetable size, that is the pieces that you cut, shouldn't be very tiny. Why should the vegetables not be washed after cutting? So whenever you are using vegetables, wash it and then start cutting. Okay, because when you wash the vegetables after cutting, okay, it destroys the mineral and the vitamins in that particular vegetables. So keep a note of all this. One more page wherein what all you have seen, you have noticed, and that was through observation, right? So that you have to show it in the form of pictures. So if you notice this, raw rice, cooked rice, raw dal, cooked dal, raw potato, boiled potato, raw brinjal, cooked brinjal. So I have put up the pics also. So same way, put the pics, print it out, cut it, and then paste it in the white area. Okay. So once this is done, definitely the first practical exercise will be completed. I hope you understood. Okay. The next video will be uploaded soon. That is for practical number 2. Okay, just subscribe the channel so it becomes easy for you, because the notification will be sent to you. So please subscribe it so that you will get updates on the next videos. Thank you.